On June 24th, 1992, Michael Jackson walked onto a stage in Munich, Germany, and performed something that had never happened before at a live concert. 72,000 people were in the stadium. Almost none of them understood what they were actually seeing. They just saw a dance move. But anyone who had spent the previous 4 years insisting that what happened that night was physically impossible, they stopped saying that after Munich. The move lasted about 4 seconds, but the 45-degree angle Michael held for those 4 seconds, feet flat, spine straight, body tilted forward past the point where standing is physically possible, had required 4 years of engineering, a federal patent application, and a collaboration between a pop star and two costume designers who understood how to make the impossible look routine. To explain what happened that night, you need to go back to 1987. The Smooth Criminal music video was filmed between February and April of that year at Culver City, California, and on the back lot of Universal Studios Hollywood. Director Colin Chilvers had a specific problem to solve. Michael wanted a scene where he and four other dancers lean forward together at a 45-degree angle, feet flat on the floor, back straight, no bent knees, and then return upright. He wanted it to look like the floor had simply decided to hold them there. The human spine and its surrounding muscle groups allow a natural forward lean of roughly 20 degrees from standing. Trained dancers with strong core muscles can push that to around 25 or 30 degrees. 45 degrees is not a harder version of 30 degrees. It is a different category of movement. At that angle, the body's center of gravity has shifted past the point where any muscle group can compensate. Without external support at the feet, the body falls forward. Kevin Pike, special effects supervisor from a California company called Filmtrix Inc., solved the problem with cables. Each dancer had one dedicated cable operator controlling them through an overhead rigging system. 5 operators for 5 performers. Each dancer's shoe also had a slot built into one heel that could slide onto a peg mounted in the floor, providing stability during the hold. The cables were the load-bearing mechanism. The floor pegs were secondary support. After filming, the cables were digitally removed from the footage frame by frame. Those 4 seconds of video became one of the most discussed, replicated, and analyzed images in pop music. People slowed the footage down, argued about whether it was real, tried to figure out the trick. The body position in the video was real. The physics were being handled by the rigging overhead. Then Michael went on the Bad World Tour. The tour ran from September 1987 to January 1989. 123 shows across 15 countries. Around 4.4 million people attended. He performed Smooth Criminal at nearly every show. He did not do the lean, not once across all 123 shows. Not because the choreography changed. He left it out because no one had solved how to do it on a touring stage without overhead cables. You cannot install a wire rigging system mid-performance, execute the lean, then detach the cables and continue the show without the audience seeing exactly what's holding the performers in the air. The illusion doesn't survive that. Once you see the wire, the move becomes something else entirely. So Michael performed Smooth Criminal every night with the lean removed from the sequence, and most of the 4.4 million people who attended had no way of knowing it was absent. There is footage from multiple Bad World Tour performances of the exact moment in the song where the lean should occur. Michael fills the space with something else. A vocal run, a spin, a beat of stillness held a half-second longer than it should be. To a viewer who had never seen the music video, nothing was missing. To Michael, something was missing every single night. Somewhere during those 123 shows, he committed to finding a way to do it live without the cables. That commitment became U.S. Patent 5255452A. The concept started with something he had observed during the original video shoot. Kevin Pike's team had built a genuine mechanical heel slot into each dancer's performance shoe. Not decorative, functional. It slid onto a real floor peg and provided real stability during filming, even though the rigging was doing most of the actual work. Michael had watched the mechanism being installed and used on set. He understood what it was doing. He understood what it could do if the cables were removed and the shoe redesigned to carry the full load. He brought the problem to Michael Bush and Dennis Tompkins. The two had been designing his performance wardrobe since the late 1970s. They knew the visual requirements of his shows and what was achievable under touring production conditions. The three of them worked on it together for months. The shoe they developed looks, from the outside, like a standard black lace-up performance shoe. Nothing about the exterior signals that anything unusual is happening inside. The heel contains a steel plate with a V-shaped slot cut into its underside. The ankle section is considerably taller than a normal design and uses rigid closures, similar in construction to a ski boot, to lock the ankle and lower leg in position. That ankle support is the critical element of the entire design. When the body tilts to 45 degrees, the load doesn't distribute across the body the way it does in a normal forward lean. It concentrates almost entirely at the Achilles tendon and ankle joint. Without rigid external support at that joint, that level of force causes injury. The boot structure redirects the load down through the shoe frame and into the stage connection. The rigid ankle straps were hidden under white performance socks pulled over the tops of the shoes. The floor side of the system is hydraulic, built directly into the stage itself. At preset moments during the performance, timed to coincide with pyrotechnic bursts and lighting changes that redirect audience attention away from the floor. Metal pegs rise a few inches from anchor points embedded in the stage surface. The dancer slides their foot forward slightly. The V-shaped slot engages the peg, and the connection locks. When the move is finished, they step back, the peg retracts, and the stage floor returns to exactly how it looked before. The whole operation happens in a few seconds. At a moment when nobody in the crowd is watching the floor, the patent application was filed with the United States Patent and Trademark Office on June 29, 1992. Title: Method and Means for Creating Anti-Gravity Illusion. Application number US 07/905479. Inventors: Michael J. Jackson, Michael L. Bush, Dennis Tompkins. Aceni, Triumph International, Inc. The Dangerous World Tour had opened in Munich 2 days earlier, on June 27. That timing is worth sitting with for a moment. The patent was filed while Michael was already performing the move in front of stadium crowds. The opening shows of the tour were the final stage of testing. The first live performances and the federal documentation were happening in the same week. He wasn't waiting for approval before doing the thing. The patent was filed after the proof of concept had already been delivered to 72,000 people in a Munich stadium. On October 26, 1993, the United States Patent and Trademark Office granted patent number US 5255452A. The official abstract reads, "A system for allowing a shoe wearer to lean forwardly beyond his center of gravity by virtue of wearing a specially designed pair of shoes, which will engage with a hitch member movably projectable through a stage surface." The U.S. government formally certified a mechanical system for moving a human body past its own center of gravity. That sentence appears in a patent abstract written by a federal examiner whose job was to describe, in neutral technical language, what the invention does. They described it as moving a human body past its own center of gravity. Then they approved it. Michael continued performing the lean through the History World Tour in 1997 and in subsequent live performances. He was still rehearsing Smooth Criminal with the full move on June 23, 2009. He died 2 days later. The lean had been part of his live performances for 17 years by then, and the patent he had filed during the same week as the Dangerous Tour's opening show had been sitting in the federal archives for nearly 2 decades. Publicly accessible, listed under the inventor's names, and largely unknown to most of the people who had watched the move performed. In May 2018, 9 years after his death, 3 neurosurgeons at the Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research in Chandigarh, India published a paper in the Journal of Neurosurgery, Spine. The title, "How Did Michael Jackson Challenge Our Understanding of Spine Biomechanics?" Peer-reviewed, published in a clinical medical journal, dedicated entirely to analyzing this one move from one song. The paper covers the mechanics of the spinal erector muscles during forward bending, documents the stress loads on the Achilles tendon at 45 degrees of tilt, and explains in clinical detail why attempting the lean without the patented support system causes acute injury. The patent is explicitly cited in the references. Their conclusion on the 45-degree angle: it exceeds all known physiological limits of human forward bending. The authors describe the move as unearthly, in a peer-reviewed medical journal about a dance move. They also note that dancers worldwide attempting to replicate the lean without the shoe system have been injuring their Achilles tendons and ankles. The paper functions in part as a clinical explanation of why that keeps happening. The patent documents are archived at the United States National Archives. The full filing is publicly available right now on Google Patents under US 5255452A. The drawings show the shoe cross-section, the V-slot geometry, the hitch member, the stage floor integration, detailed mechanical engineering diagrams, annotated with patent standard labels. The inventor listed at the top of the document is Michael J. Jackson. Nobody in live concert production in 1988 was debating whether the lean could be done without cables. It couldn't, and that was simply the established reality of the format. Film could do things that touring stages couldn't. The lean was one of them. There was nothing to argue about. Michael's response to that wasn't an argument either. He spent months with two collaborators, developed a mechanical solution that addressed each specific failure point in the problem, performed the result in front of stadium crowds to confirm it worked, and filed a federal patent. The people who said it couldn't be done live weren't wrong about the physics. They were just solving the wrong version of the problem. The lean itself was never what needed solving. The ankle joint was. The load transfer was. The stage floor was. Once those three things had solutions, the physics of the lean stopped being a constraint. If you watch live footage from the Dangerous or History tours during Smooth Criminal, in the few seconds just before the lean, there are pyrotechnic bursts and a shift in the stage lighting. That is the cover. That is when the pegs come up from the floor. Tens of thousands of people were watching the light show while the stage was reconfiguring itself a few feet in front of them. None of them noticed. They saw a man tilt 45 degrees forward and come back upright. They saw the result. They didn't need to understand the method. That is what good engineering produces. The mechanism disappears. What remains is only the effect. Patent number US 5255452A, granted October 26, 1993. It is in the Federal Archives. You can look it up today.